Hey, hello guys, how are you? Welcome to the week number 7 of our course. Hope everything's going well on your side. I want to start this week by telling you or reminding you some things about our our exam that we will have on the week number 8. So this is the last week before our midterm exam, the one that we will have in the middle of the semester. So hopefully everything has been clear enough. You have enough exercises and enough practice in order to be able to face this assignment, this new challenge of the test, which I know that can be a little bit challenging for some. So I will tell you by the monitors probably even before uh, mm, you actually see this video, but we're having a little synchronic meeting in order to sort of agree on certain things related to the exam, the mechanism, the times, everything else. Okay, so any question that you may have about this this activity, it will be a good time to prepare it and to start thinking about it, because there are some details that we require like to clarify. Okay. As usual, I am going to share with you a poem. Started this class. This time is a poem by Homero Aritis, which is a Latin American poet, and this is called Tercer Poema de Ausencia. Tú has escondido la luz en alguna parte y me niegas el retorno. Sé que esta oscuridad no es cierta, porque antes de mis manos volaban las luciérnagas y yo te buscaba y tú eras tú, y éramos unos ojos en un mismo lecho, y nadie de nosotros pensaba en el eclipse. Pero nos hicimos fríos y conocidos, y la noche se hizo inaccesible para bajarla juntos. Tú has escondido la luz en otros ojos, porque desde que ya no existes, nada de lo que está junto a mí amanece. It's a really short one, but I really like it because the way I understand it, this is the nostalgia of a relationship that used to be bright and nice and lovely, but it is not anymore. No, there's a little bit inertia, routine, and probably the relationship broke up or something like that. And now this light that this woman provided to the guy is dedicated to somebody else. Yes, which is always difficult to accept, but it happens. So, nice poem. Hope you have liked it. Well, guys, we're going to start today with the next period, that is the neoclassical one. You will find it on the slide number 97. So please go to that slide in order to accompany this presentation. Let's start by the name. Yes. So what is it neoclassical, right? What does it call to you? What does it? What is the image, or what is the idea that comes to your mind when you listen to this expression neoclassical? Okay. So we have an almost oxymoronical combination. Yes, that is two words that mean sort of the opposite things, right? The first one, that is neo, and neo in this case, that means of course new. Yes, something that is not old, something that is a novelty, let's say recent, modern, contemporary. There are different things to be extracted by this, right? And then we have the word classical. That, of course, it has like different acceptions depending on the context. But most of the case, we understand something classical as something old but valuable. Yes, something that has a tradition, and in order to have a tradition, requires to be born some years ago, many years ago, And well, if you think about classical music or architecture or classical, um, I don't know, clothes or classical TV series or classical movies, normally that is the first thing that comes to your mind. No? All things that are respected somehow, right? So this combination of things seems to a little bit oxymoronic, right? Like opposite, but it must have some sort of uh, some sort of logic. Yes, in the middle of this idea. So, well, as you can imagine, let's say that what they're trying to do on this period is to take something that was classical before, right? Something that was respected and valuable and something that was attractive and recognized and make it new, right? Like a new version of something that was great, like the remake of something, right? And remember that I have mentioned this in the past, like how nostalgia is a really powerful force in the universe, no? And every now and then, like we return to the past, we come back to better times because um, we're always thinking that, right? Like if you don't know if you're getting old, like a good sign that you're getting old is that you think that the past was better, that the school was better, that now students are not as good as they were before when you were a student, that TV series were much better in the past, that music was much better in the past, right? Now we even have classic reggaeton, yes, old reggaeton. What's that? Right? And people like have this nostalgia of the golden days of reggaeton and things like that. Yes, I'm just giving you some examples. And let's say that this is a little bit of a permanent feeling that every now and then returns, right? So that about the name. Then, as you can see, it has like a subtitle or something in brackets, in parentheses over there, that says enlightenment or age of reason, right? So enlightenment has to do with illumination, with making things clearer, and normally light has been associated to knowledge, right? So this is like a way to say that this is a period of time in which knowledge, illumination, reasoning, logic was somehow very valuable, right? So that's really important, guys. Let's say that anything that's rational, logical, controlled, let's say limited somehow, that has a framework, that is the essence of the neoclassical period, right? Now here we have something really interesting, and is that for the first time in the periods that we have managed so far, it is the first time that we are having manifestations of it in England and in America. Remember that until the previous period, we had only England somehow, and then with British colonialism, we have all these different new colonies that were opened and that were somehow, let's say, an appendage of the British Empire by the time, right? I mean, actually, there are other manifestations of neoclassical as well in Australia and India and in any other colony of Britain, but we are going to focus basically on these two, okay? So as you can see, you have two dates in England, 1660 until 1785 more or less, that's the period, and in America in 1750 until 1800 more or less, right? As you can see, there is almost 100 years, yes, of delay between what happened in England and what arrived into America. Yes, and that is, let's say, going to maintain. Yes, in the future we will see that the difference are a little bit smaller, but they still happen first in England and then go to America, to the territory of the USA. Now, hopefully you have noticed, and if you haven't, please analyze that right now, how every period, every new period is somehow a response to the previous period. Yes, I don't know if you have analyzed that or realized, but if you haven't, well, take that into account. We have the first period, that is the Anglo-Saxon, in which there was battle, violence, havoc somehow, yes, mayhem, and everything is let's say, out of control somehow. Of course, there are a certain level of organization, but in general, like, violence and blood is exacerbated. And then we have the Middle English, in which we have a complete focus on organization, administrative, royalty, let's say, figures of power. There is the apparition of the organized justice somehow, yes, juries and judgments and jobs related to administration. We also have God, that is the center of everything, right? You see, it's a response to the previous period. But then if we go to the Renaissance, so that Renaissance is a response to the previous one, right? Like, no, God is not our master anymore. He doesn't exist. We're on our own. And man is the center of the universe, right? With all its advantages and disadvantages, right? Hopefully you see a trend, no? There's like a response to the previous period. It is almost like if the new period is the teenager and it's trying to contradict his parents, right? Like the Middle English is the son of somehow the Anglo-Saxon period, and he's trying to do the opposite. And then we have the Renaissance, that it's like the bratty daughter, and rebel daughter of the Middle English that wants to do everything in opposition, right? So here we are going to see that we are going to continue with that trend. Yes, basically in this neoclassical period they said, okay, it is fine that man is the center of the universe, right? But you're thinking too much in a void thing, in a let's say an empty reflection. Yes, you're thinking about your nostalgia and thinking about your place in the universe. You're questioning all the time your existence, your goal, your mission. Nice, but you're not giving any solutions, right? Probably you're just overthinking. Reason is really important, but reason is supposed to have solutions, and somehow with only thinking, we're not going to solve anything, right? So we are going to try to focus that reasoning and that logic, and we're going to try to make it work. Yes, that is sort of like the opposition of the neoclassical to Renaissance, right? They basically said in the neoclassical, we need direction. Okay, we cannot be thinking just in an ethereal, nebulous thing. So we need direction, we need order, and we need restraint. That is what I mentioned before. No, so if you don't know the meaning of the word restraint, look for it. It's really important in terms of limit of providing a framework in not, let's say, limiting how much are you going to think about the topic and the reach and the scope of what you're doing, right? So we require order, we require direction, and restraint. Okay, now this was originally developed in France, yes, and we have somehow important manifestators of this let's say trend, yes. And in there we have Molière, Rousseau, Voltaire, that are really important promoters of this movement. And let's say that we can like see them or know them in process such as the illustration and the encyclopedism. That must be encyclo, I guess. Encyclopedism, yeah, because it's an encyclopedia. So, and these encyclopedias, guys, I don't know if you're familiar with, but basically, maybe you still have a couple of them in your house or your grandpa's house, and there were, let's say, collections of books from A to Z, and over there you will find all the comprised knowledge of, let's say, humankind. Yes. So by taking a look at the tome with the letter A, you were going to find everything that there was to know about chemistry, ethics, philosophy, mathematics, biology, language, etc. Right? And all the, let's say, the knowledge of humankind was contained in there. Right? Of course, back then, what we had was extremely, little. Was just a little bit of information, and nevertheless there were thousands and thousands of pages, right? So that is very classical in terms of the style. Yes, the classics or the classical style always try to be very general. Yes, to be very embracing. They want to somehow have a general approach to everything, and being able like to describe everything and to control everything somehow. Yes, so like saying that in a couple of books, 20 and 25, you could like summarize the whole knowledge of humankind. It's something that nowadays we find unbelievable, right? It is like if we wanted to download every single web page of the internet and print it and put it into books. Yes, like how much will be that? But well, that is like the pretension that they have, like to have all this general knowledge of humankind. So as I mentioned before, the ideals of this period emphasized on classical ideas of rationality and control. Yes. So everything is going to be better if we think it through, if we filter it through the prism of reason, of reflection, of rationalization, of logic, right? And everything should be really controlled, right? Like it shouldn't escape our feelings somehow. Like we are able to express certain feelings that they should be like presented in really systematic ways and controlled ways. Yes. Now they do present a postulate that is really interesting for me. Yes, and it's that the neoclassical says that human nature is constant through time. Yes, and think about it; they are at least partially right. Yes, the problems that we have today, 2020, are exactly the same problems that people had thousands of years ago. Hundreds of years ago at least, right? Let's say family problems, the father that does not respect his kids that have no respect for their parents that trying to force certain behaviors, attitudes, or that expect certain behaviors from their kids, and kids wanting to do the opposite. Today we have problems of people falling in love and not being corresponded. We have problems with marriages that does not work out. We have problems with friends. We have problems with money. We have problems with disease. We have problems with, I don't know, you name it. Think about your problems, yes, and those issues existed many years ago, right? So basically they say that problems, affection, success, somehow they are constant through time. Yes, mostly problems, right? So the topics or the themes of literature, of philosophy, of language, even though they change somehow through time, and of course we cannot deny that we have advanced, well, the neoclassical say that they are basically or potentially the same problem, the same issues. So basically they say, well, if we have the same issues and we have been having those problems hundreds of years ago, well, we're going to try to identify them and we're going to try to solve them. Yes, somehow. It's like the reflection that they do. Of course, spoiler alert, they failed. We still have the same problems. But at least I think that something that was an apportation that I consider was brilliant from them is the identification of all these very basic problems, and you can somehow, Google that online, like neoclassical problems or conceptions of human issues, and you will find like a list of, I don't know, 20 or 30, and I'm sure that you will be that you will agree that those are problems that have transcended humanity. They just change or adapt somehow with technology, with the trends of the time, political things, social things, economic, but they are basically the same. Okay? Well, now something that was really important, and this is, let's say, a focal point specifically for for many things, but I think that one of the most relevant is the role of women, right? Why? Because in the neoclassical ideal, let's say that art should reflect universal communality of human nature. What does it mean? That art, represented in paintings, sculptures, literature, poetry, theater, drama, anything you can imagine that can be considered art, well, it is supposed to have the goal to either show, exhibit, or ask for, demand human equality. Yes, that we are all equal. All men are created equal, and when we say men, we include women. Of course, if we still have problems with that in 2020, yes, there are still certain things that happen in terms of benefits that men receive more than women. Well, you can imagine there. At least they sort of promoted this idea, and it was a great start. We will see some reasons why. And well, this also helped a lot of the independence processes throughout the world, right? Let's say that the cradle of this was France, then it came over here. And actually, when we're talking about independence of Colombia, for example, well, Latin America in general, Simon Bolivar was deeply influenced by neoclassical thinkers and neoclassical ideas of illustration and somehow of men supposed to be equal. Of course, we are going to see that many of these ideals were perverted somehow, and some of them were just excuses. But well, again, an ideal is, let's say, this pure somehow conception that normally never realized. It's like a utopia, but well, that was the idea. Now, and I think that with this we will finish this part of the lesson. I already mentioned that reason was emphasized as the highest faculty, right? I think I have some more to tell about this, so I'm going to leave it over here, okay? So thank you very much. See you then in the next video, and we will continue talking about this reason part, okay? Thanks. Hugs.